Welcome to the Politics News Wolf US channel. Ukraine's main goal now seems closer than ever before for Russian President Vladimir Putin. This goal could mean the end of the war or even himself. Yes. You know what we are talking about? Crimea is the most important region in Ukraine for. The Crimean Peninsula, which was annexed by Russia in 2014, is in a position to provide full dominance in the Black Sea. Due to its strategic location, Crimea brings both military and economic dominance to those who own it. For this reason, Crimea, which is in a much more valuable position than Russia's Krasnodar port, is seen as indispensable for Russian President Vladimir Putin. The landing of Ukrainian soldiers in Crimea will mean the end of Putin's political life. However, there are stages that the Ukrainian armed forces must go through in order to achieve this conquest. From the published satellite images, it is clear that the Ukrainian armed forces is preparing for a major Crimean attack, and possible targets have been. We even stated that the Russian army were seriously prepared for this. However, the developments in the eastern part of Ukraine's Melitopol and Kherson at the moment show us the preliminary preparation of the moves by the Ukrainian armed forces for the operation to liberate Crimea. As you know, after the raid of Kherson by Ukraine, the western part of the Nero River completely passed into the hands of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Ukrainian armed forces is getting ready for a serious ground attack, especially in the Niko and Vesel regions, especially with Ukrainian partisan attacks in the Novokava. The first signals of this operation are given. However, we estimate that the real break will be experienced in the Zaporizhzhia region, because there's a movement of the Ukrainian armed forces from there to the Melitopol region. The cities of Dolin and Myrna are exposed to Russian attacks. However, the Ukrainian armed forces have serious preparations in the Kononov sections, and the cities of Daka and Myrna may fall into the hands of the Ukrainian armed forces. Soon in this region, only Luhava fell into the hands of the Russian army, and it seems necessary for the Ukrainian armed forces to take this region back because the Ukrainian partisans are carrying out very serious operations in Melitopol and the Russian army is suffering a lot in this region, especially in the Makai, Lika, and Tok regions of Ukraine, which are close to the border of Russian troops in Me. Ukrainian partisans can provide a serious advantage to the Ukrainian armed forces. If Melitopol comes under the control of the Ukrainian armed forces, again, the Russian troops in the Khan region will be stuck, and it seems likely that these troops will flee towards Crimea at this point. If the Arman Black Strait, which is the entrance to Crimea, is the target of Ukrainian bombardment, the Russian army may suffer tens of thousands of losses in a day. The Russian army, which will be resolved with this loss, may suddenly lose Crimea. Let's examine the operation that the Ukrainian armed forces aims to carry out for Crimea with an analysis that includes the concerns of the Russian commanders on this issue. Putin's fears about Crimea are increasing after the latest intelligence reports reached the Kremlin on this issue because the vulnerability of Crimea is the fact that Crimea has been subjected to more than 10 attacks, both from the air and from the sea in the last month, shows not only near the Kremlin, but also to us how inadequate the defense systems in the region are. For this reason, the Russian army is preparing multi-pronged defense lines in the Crimea against the strong attack of Ukraine. And at the same time, it is beginning to evacuate many of the Russian civilians in the region. More than 1 million Russians are known to live in Crimea. Many of them. Currently, civilians are being evacuated periodically and regularly while the number of Russian soldiers there is increasing. Clashes will flare up in Crimea very soon, and the population of the peninsula is aware of this and is fleeing quickly. Russian military commanders are also increasingly concerned about Crimea's vulnerability to Ukrainian attacks. Fears forced Putin's generals to make a significant change in their bombing campaign against Ukrainian civilian interests. Military bases on the peninsula have previously been used to launch drone attacks on Ukrainian cities. However, in the last attacks, UAVs were deployed from the Krasnodar region of Russia. Changing the launch site is likely to add to Russian concerns about the vulnerability of Crimea, but also seems appropriate for resupply from Astral. Can the possible destination of the weapons in Russia? War experts predict that the Ukrainian army could take control of the occupied Crimean Peninsula. By August 2023, it is stated that Ukraine will continue to beat Russian headquarters and communication lines for the next few weeks until February. This is so that Ukraine can determine the conditions for liberating Crimea from Russian control, which Hodges describes as the decisive phase of the campaign. The faith of most war experts in the Ukrainian armed forces is increasing every day. By August It is estimated that Crimea will be captured by the Ukrainian armed forces. Russia illegally annexed Crimea in 2014. Although Western countries continue to claim the peninsula as part of Ukraine. The same goes for Donetsk, Luhansk, Zap, and Kherson. Several regions in Ukraine that Russian President Vladimir Putin enacted at the end of September. Forcing governments such as the United States to recognize these Ukrainian territories as part of, calling this alleged annexation illegal and illegitimate. There were even statements that U.S. weapons could be used on Crimea. Following these statements, it was understood that even if the Kremlin went crazy, it was very likely that the Ukrainian armed forces would carry out an operation in the Crimea anyway. The latest satellite images of Russian-occupied Crimea show air defense zones and ships, which defense experts say could rank as prime targets for the Ukrainian military as it seeks to weaken Russia's forces and recapture captured territory. Crimea's importance as a launching pad for Russia's attacks on mainland Ukraine increased after Russian forces withdrew from the city of Kherson, the regional capital they had captured since Moscow launched a large-scale invasion in February. Russian forces have suffered multiple setbacks since but continue to control parts of Kherson, Zar, Luhansk, and Donetsk. In addition to the Crimea they occupied in 2014. Satellite images show that out of 10 active military airfields in Crimea by mid-November, the airspace in Zykov has become the main logistics center for Russia's operations in southern Ukraine. It also serves as a base for attack helicopters. Viktor Kek, a defense industry expert at the Center for Defense Strategies, a key think tank, said Sanko is now #1 among the top 5 targets for Ukrainian attacks. This statement should be perceived as being very critical because we observe that as long as these targets are attacked by the Ukrainian armed, the shipments to Crimea have decreased and the Russian army has marked these areas as risky. We can say that the decrease in Russian shipments directly affects the defense in the region. Planet Labs footage shows more than 50 helicopters stationed at Sanko Airport. Among them are K-52 helicopters, an attack helicopter capable of destroying tanks and conducting aerial reconnaissance. Russia's state military hardware export agency Roboronexport has the Mi-28 gunship, which is built as a flying tank. The I-35 gunship and the multi-mission I-8 helicopter used for transport attacks and reconnaissance. Planet Labs footage shows that besides helicopters, cargo planes and Su-25 attack frequently flighted Sankroy. There seems to be at least 3 warehouses with ammunition and equipped places for anti-aircraft missile systems at the airport. So there is a very serious Russian air presence in the region, but Ukraine's stick in the region scares them. Putin may not be able to protect these assets. If Vladimir Putin is not able to protect them, there will suddenly be a serious indignation in the. For this reason, Russian military commanders think that Russia should defend the Crimean entrance very well because the morale of the Russian soldiers hangs by a thread. This thread, which can break at any moment, can lead them to destruction. Yes, losing the western part of Kherson has demoralized the Russian army, but losing Crimea will cause a much more serious outrage, even a fire that can ignite in Moscow. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel to update you with daily information.